Three, two, one, liftoff.
Cannabinoid Connect, the nation's most diverse cannabis-related podcast.
Let's do it. But to on that point, I totally agree in that we're in the infancy stage. Maybe, we're kind of growing into maybe the toddler. I don't know yet, but either way,
Yeah.
we're really young. And
Yeah.
like you said, these industries that have legacy at this point, oil and gas, et cetera, those have been around, what you said, 100 years it's taken to build,
Yeah. Yeah, these businesses are 100 years old. Like I came from music, and in music I had like an indie label, and there was these major labels that existed for 50 years basically. And I never thought, being the indie label guy, that I could become the major label guy. There was just always that, like, there was not even an opportunity to go up. It was just
Right.
like be separate forever. And in cannabis, the reason I got into cannabis was because the same feeling I got from the men and women I was working with on the music label, and like, managing and putting out their records, that went from like basement shows to like mainstream huge artists I worked with. And the same feeling I got from the men and women doing cannabis, but you can't download weed. Right. So that was like the main, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be like download proof, digital
Right.
proof essentially. So, like t-shirts kind of. And, and that's how you made money in music anyways, was t-shirts or tickets, really.
Yep.
So that's like the similarities here. But that's what I feel like we're doing now. I feel like, I had mentioned to you earlier, Gary Vaynerchuk's our partner. And, I was like, it's a 10-year plan. And he's like, Rama, it's a 30-year plan, and I love that, because the music stuff I did, it's actually the 30-year anniversary right now of my old punk rock record label.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how this is possible, but 30 years later, we are actually just re-released like some of the music. So like
Wow.
30, I put out a vinyl record. This one came out 28 years ago, this vinyl record. And 28 years later, we just put it out again. And like kids are buying it, and bands are covering the songs, and kids are moshing to it today. And the songs are 30 years old that we put out, and it's still relevant.
Right.
It's crazy. So now when Gary going, it's 30-year plan, and then me working with projects from 30 years ago again today, it's really given me enough confidence to know that it's a very long-term approach for cannabis. So we're lifers in the space. So
Yeah.
I have the luxury, I'd even call it, of like that much of a long-term kind of vision and goal. I'm not really panicking and worrying about the day-to-day of it all.
Yeah. What do you focus on when you think about advancing cannabis, right? So whether it be through public opinion, which I think we're seeing the
Definitely.
majority is already there, but also like legislatively, um, socially, like what are your thoughts around all that? And
Yeah,
and
I love
where
it.
are we?
Love the
Yeah.
question. Advancing cannabis. So yeah, I'd say it's like absolutely the modern mainstream adoption, you know, um, earned media in a positive way, and press and mainstream stuff. You know, um, every single TV show or movie that I've watched in the past 4 years has had some moment of cannabis in it. Every one of them, even if it's like a drama movie, an action movie, it doesn't matter. They all have like one little moment where there's a character smoking weed or whatever. Um, so I love
That's true.
this.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
They
every single
add
one.
they add those in, and I see that in mainstream, and then I see like public forums like X or Reddit or and the prohibitionist side, and I know a lot of it is. I mean, it's nonsense because they talk about certain things like how we're targeting children, which is absolutely not true, right? And of course, we want to regulate companies that have that type of cartoonish branding or mimic candies and whatnot that kids would be attracted to, right? I don't know. I mean, I know that it's not a perfect substance either, and there are side effects for some people, and I understand that as well, but they push this narrative so hard, and it's almost like scare tactics, like fear mongering in a way, and these
Sure.
headlines are so like clickbaity, with so how do you think that
Yeah.
is resonating overall with the public?
Um, okay, so I guess the way what I thought of when you asked that is the polls that you're seeing of like the younger generation, and they
Hmm.
don't use cannabis as much, and they definitely don't think it's illegal or crazy or bad. Like they're not tempted by it, and they're definitely not using alcohol as much or even close to it because they know
Right.
for sure it's bad for you.
That's true. Yeah.
Um, right. So I think that um, yeah, I'm a Reddit person every day, and I see stuff on Reddit. I go to the top trending, and every few weeks or so there'll be something cannabis related that floats like the top of the charts, if you will, on the Reddit, popular page or whatever,
Yeah.
uh, off of the weed section, but onto the mainstream section. And yeah, I think that I don't know. I think it's just a matter of time before that this goes fully legal. I used to want to keep it illegal, honestly, because it allowed me to like build our businesses up more before like crazy big corporate ruthless money came in on it. Then I realized that how many people were like in prison for it,
Hmm.
nonviolent cannabis offenders through we're really close with the Freedom Grow project. If you don't know Freedom Grow, please check it out. And Randy Lanier. And then I started meeting people that were in jail for 10 years, 15 years. Randy was in jail for 27 years. So like you're meeting these people, then they're going, oh, we have hundreds and thousands of friends still in jail. So that really like fucked me up. And so I really believe like the most important conversation in cannabis, period, is going to be social justice, social equity, as well as probably number two to me. But like that's the only thing that really matters. So I think if I'm like always looking through that lens of it. So to me, it's just a matter of time. I don't think this is going anywhere. And I'm also like the most unpolitical person in the world. I was the punk rocker, right? Like I said, so like we hated the politics and the president forever, and as punk rockers, you like didn't you like you didn't you wanted to be like over political, no Chomsky style, and so I just really saw early on that it was hard to it's like you can't fight the ocean almost, right now. So I think I've just been not caught up with any of that mentally and just kind of had blinders on. And for the past 12 or 13 years or so, maybe, I guess, maybe a little more, I've been just focused in California, where it's been the most progressive, place in the world, top five type of thing. So like you're in Texas. I have no idea what's going on down there. I made a joke to you that Texas was the weed capital of the world as a joke,
Yeah.
because I
Which
would go
it's
to South.
definitely not at all.
No,
And as I
no,
as
no,
I
no.
mentioned,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was terrifying. We would go
there's
to this
legislation going on right
Southwest.
now where they're trying to ban, hemp products,
Yeah,
THC, A and Delta 8. So
yeah,
that's my point, right? That's perfect. Going back to like the question is like, is that side still even relevant? I mean, in Texas, there's a complete divide. The people want it,
yeah,
and there's petitions being
definitely.
signed. And I think I mentioned to you off recording, but what I was told by a Texas lawyer, cannabis lawyer, I won't say who or what firm, but they mentioned, you know, look, it's not about the money at this point. Like they have the money in different industries such as oil and gas, and it's like it's truly a morality thing. Like they just don't want the substance, and it goes back to the reefer madness kind of
Yeah, for sure.
narrative
Yeah,
and so on. So I ask these questions because as the founder of Hall of Flowers, you're dealing with a lot of brands and companies that are representing themselves in a certain way, right? And putting themselves out there, and
definitely.
they add value in certain capacities within the cannabis industry because it's so multifaceted. So,
Yep.
are you seeing, this kind of legitimacy in the space, and in a way that's like, I mean, when people really look under the hood, they're like, this is a burgeoning industry where it's employing hundreds of thousands of people. The it's actually medicine in a lot of cases, for people
Yeah.
that need it recreationally. It's great, and it's a perfect alternative outside of alcohol. Tell me
Yep.
about those companies.
Yeah. So everything you said, I agree with. Yeah. So again, it's a different planet out here. Hall Flowers is now 7 years in or something. It's like our 15th show or something coming up, or 16th show or something. So it's evolved since we started it. We were a huge part of the evolution of it, and I think, at the the base level, you know, these are hundreds of entrepreneurs that are mostly passionate about the plant, and then probably start back into their business from there. Then they got to create a brand around it, because what are they going to put on the packaging for their weed or whatever. And but then they're really smart. They want to grow. They realize that they need to keep up with the other brands around them. So they need to have a cool logo and a cool story and a cool website and some cool merch now and all this kind of stuff, right? So I think they really like leveled each other up. Like I talked about it in the past, where like Hall Flowers, the first show, at Hall Flowers, where we do a lot of things differently than a lot of trade shows, and my partners in it, Danny and Aaron, and Danny is really running the day to day of everything. He's the man. But like, Danny ran fashion trade shows for decades, big fashion trade shows, big ones, huge ones all over the world. And I went to them and said, "Hey, come and do this for Cannabis. I need like the hard work, someone to do the hard work. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that. I want to do the fun stuff. And so we build your booths out for you. For the most part, you kind of come turnkey style solution. Your shelves, your tables, everything's there when you show up. Your signs, everything. So the first show of Hall of Flowers, you saw like a few kind of brands and then mostly products. And then 6 months later, it was like, whoa, like it's like, it went from like 10%, brands and 90% products to 30% brands. And the next show was like 60% brands. And now it's all brands, but I think everyone kind of coming together and secret shopping the other booths and just seeing what people are doing, it just raised the whole market up quickly, So I'd say that all the brands here are, especially with our show, are incredibly professional. Like if you brought people to Hall Flowers, you would think you're at a best in class trade show in any industry, right? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's definitely not like it's not like parking lot shit, you know what I mean, that we're doing. So I think that's like, we're spoiled. We're in a bubble, because we built something that's just so, produced and curated. We turned down hundreds of companies for the show. Like if you're any other trade show in the industry in the world, most industries, if your check clears, you get in. We have a crazy approval processes. You have to submit your booth renderings to us in order for us to approve it to even come in. Like we don't, no one even shows up. We're not like, we know what you're bringing before you get there. You know what I mean? Like that's how, and then we're designing and doing the layouts based on what everyone wants to bring. You know what I mean? So it's just done such a pro way that, we've had a lot of pushback doing the event, trying to go to different cities and stuff. And we brought like, the mayors of cities to our events, or like, the chiefs of police or chiefs of the fire department, they're blown away. They're like, this is one of the nicest events we've ever had at this venue. And we do, the flower show here and the tech show and all these other things. So, um, yeah. So I think that's it. You just got to see the right stuff. I brought up my mentor, Shep Gordon. I don't know if you know Shep Gordon, Supermensch.
Mm-mm.
Uh, un- he's my mentor, like number one music manager kind of all time. A great, amazing documentary called Supermensch. And Shep we went to an event years ago, High Times Cannabis Cup, in Colorado, and they wanted Shep to bring her. We went to the show. 20 minutes into the walking in the front door, he was like, oh, I could never bring this to Hawaii. You know what I mean? This is embarrassing. You know what I mean? So I think we've just built something that isn't, you know?
Yeah. No, that's a really good explanation. I appreciate you sharing that. And it sounds like your business partner, who I think you mentioned was had experience in the fashion industry, and I think from what I
Danny.
read from your bio that you worked, at major Fortune 500 companies, Disney, Interscope,
Yeah.
Pepsi, to name a few. So, were you
Yeah, yeah.
on like the event side at those companies? Like, what did you do there, and what are some of the lessons that I think both of you guys bring that kind of help with this?
Yeah. Yeah. So I worked at an ad agency, um, and with a mentor of mine named Dr. Romanelli, Darren Romanelli, and he had an agency called Street Virus. Now it's called Epidemic. But we um, had all these really cool clients, and we did special ops for them. We didn't work with other agencies. We only worked direct with client. That's kind of rare. A lot of agencies work with other agencies. We refused to do that. And from there, we created this like brand called the Pancake Epidemic. It was around Stumptown Coffee was a new client of ours, and we were doing some events for them. And everything else, yeah, it depends. I would build Pepsi's licensing trade show booth at the licensing trade show in Vegas. We would design experiences at the Grove in LA or these big malls. Some of it was design, some of it was social media or websites and stuff like that. But really, like experiential, I'd call it. Which is what we call it now, experiential. That's my expertise, I would say. I'm obsessed with brand specifically, and like the foundation of a brand, and then the way I really want to show off a brand and promote a brand and strengthen a brand to me is experience. Opposed to like paid ads or things like that. True events. Again, I was a punk rock promoter. I did an event 30 years ago called the New Bedford Fest. There's an Instagram now for it 30 years later for an event that we did. My mom had to drop me off at the venue. I was 15. You know what I mean? And 30 years later, kids are still talking about this concert that we threw. And
Wow.
and it was bigger than it was more. I had 3,000 people in at that event, and this is before payphones. I'm sorry, this is payphones. This is before cell phones. This is pre-internet. This is us calling bands on a phone and then printing flyers on a thing and going to shows. And the internet wasn't existing back then when we were doing this.
Right.
So yeah, but this is all I know. So like I'm just used to it. Gary V actually said to us, he thinks that's probably the best thing that happened to us is that we weren't allowed to buy ads. We weren't just stuck on the meta ad machine, that we had to go out and do like word of mouth, or earned media or that kind of stuff. And with that, you need to talk about cool shit and do cool shit to get that to happen. So yeah, experience is it. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in companies that are doing it right, I mean, they're running all channels. They're not just running ads on Meta, you know what I mean? Like you said, they're guerrilla marketing. Even now, your
God.
product placement on the podcast, of course. Yeah.
I
And
was at the mall. I went to the mall yesterday.
uh-huh.
Macy's here. I just needed some inspo. I went to Macy's, Target, Journeys, Hot Topic, Lids, all like the stores, you know what I mean, that I used to go into as a kid. And Poppy, my favorite Poppy, had and Target, they had a beautiful clothing capsule little section with like amazingly designed beanies, hoodies, sweatpants, like all this cool shit. It was like I'm not even joking. There was like it was all women's, and I was like, could I pull off these pink sweatpants? I'm not sure, but it was like a 10 out of 10, positioning and brand and product, and it's a soda company. You know what I mean? And they're new, right? It's not like it's Coca Cola, like some cool heritage thing. It's like a new thing that was like dead center, right in the center of Target, best placement in the entire building.
Right.
So yeah, you have to extend past, like you said, like omni channel or whatever they call it in the biz. You know what I mean? You have to be everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And I'm glad you brought that example up because I was going to talk about I think the importance of authenticity, the authenticity of cannabis culture, right? We don't want that to go away. I think that there's a special kind of culture that has been around and is currently, right, like kind of thriving within the industry. And how do we preserve that from a branding standpoint?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, protecting the authenticity of cannabis is something that I care deeply about, and I think it's a million different ways, right? For us specifically, it's giving our platform and sharing our voice with the people out there that were the pioneers of this. Whole Flowers coming up, we have like incredible cultivators that are coming to the show to speak. We have Luke Scarmezzo building a panel and creating his own area. Luke had a pre-ICO dispensary here in California. He went to prison for, I'm blanking on it. Oh my God, I'm blanking. 12 years or I think 15 years. Luke went to prison. I can't believe I don't remember. I promise I do know this. But he went to prison for like 15 years. Operating a dispensary here. In my opinion, whatever he ever needs from me for the rest of my life that I can help him with, I'm going to help him. So, um, for us, it's that. It's showing the people that care where their cannabis is coming from. I think there's a big divide happening now, right? So another way I could answer this is the divide's happening. The Budweisers or whatever you want to call it are coming, and then the craft beers are coming, and there's gonna be that big split. And I love it if people want to go and just buy weed the way they buy a Budweiser. That's perfect. Fuck yeah, please go buy all that. Then there's the kind of like the beer snobs, the people that want to do the tastings, the people that buy the beer flight at the thing and they want to try all the stuff. That's the other half of it, and that's like what the cultivators really want. That's what the craft, cool brands, like the flower that I'm smoking here, from brands like CBX or Alien Labs or Connected or, Pure Beauty or something, that's like more art, and I think the authenticity, it's hard to scale it, right? We've seen some brands do it, Hurley, maybe like Burton Snowboards, whatever, these kind of things, So I'm not really expecting like the big corporate giants of weed to have authenticity. I wish they would have it, and I wish they would use their platforms to support it. But I don't know if they care about it that much. I'm not really sure. I think I've told people tell me, I've had meetings with some people, they told me they're selling widgets. Like we're selling widgets, Rama. We don't care about anything that you're talking about. You know what I mean? So, and I think on the other side, the the craft brands, like that's all they care about is the authenticity of their product. So I think they have a problem trying to scale, right? So I think the answer is like, help and support all the true artists that are out there and all the OGs that are out there. I'm an outsider still. I've been doing Green Street exclusively with cannabis, working with brands for 13 years, only in cannabis, and I'm still an outsider. You know what I mean?
What do you mean
So
by
I'm
that?
not
Like you see yourself as that, or do you feel like
absolutely.
you're not on the in?
Yeah. No, I think absolutely I'm an outsider. I think unless you've been on the mountain, cultivating for years and stuff, you're an outsider, in the space. I don't feel good that people say that or people feel that way, but I do feel that way. And maybe
Yeah.
give me another 5 years, 10 years, maybe I won't be or something. But it's like I live right here at a surf break, like one of the most iconic little surf breaks in Southern California, and locals only. You know what I mean? So I'm that's like get
It
off my
sounds
wave
like a
tube.
rough way to walk around though. Like I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
brings negativity, but
No,
if
no,
it
no, not at all. No, it's not
no,
negative. No, no, not at all. No, it's like I want to provide as much value as I can. You know what I
I
mean?
see.
I think
You're
there's
it's a
100%.
humble. I think it's a is it a humble approach is kind of what it is. It's
Sure.
like you know that you haven't like if there's people that are out like you said cultivators that have been doing this for years even in the on the illicit side like I mean they're
Yeah.
the people that have really pushed this industry to where it is today, and so I
Yes.
get it's a way to pay a tribute or
Yeah.
to show your respect. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I get
Like,
it.
yeah. I grew up punk rock and skateboarding. You know what I mean? So if you weren't Dogtown,
You're the nicest punk rock and skateboarder I've ever met.
I love it. I love it. Good. Hell yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I've been working on it. I live at the beach now, so it's easier to chill out.
I know. I
Um,
bet. I wish we had some water over here.
yeah.
Um, Hey, let me ask you this. So, the role of events and experience in cannabis, right? So, I think for especially like Hall of Flowers, it's critical for businesses to network and for brand visibility, right? So, talk
Yeah.
to me about the power of direct to consumer experiences, like you mentioned earlier, and how, there's so much value there. I'm sure even your partner, Gary Vaynerchuk, who I've heard him talk a lot about this, like that hand to hand,
Yeah.
face to face interaction. How,
Yeah.
tell me about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's to me, it's priceless. We have brands that call us and they're like, well, we're not sure if we're going to do the show. Like, we're in all the accounts, and it's like, well, great. Then where could you see your 400 accounts in 2 days? Like nowhere. It'd take you 2 months to drive around. You know what I mean? And so you should be, if you're in all the accounts, you should be booking people from your C-suite to meet with the decision makers at the dispensaries that they're already doing your product. And I'll bet you, if you meet with 100 retailers, I'll imagine that your orders will get slightly bigger at the next turnaround. You know what I mean? Come on, what are we
Right,
talking about here?
right.
And
Yeah.
then it's priceless for brands that are trying to open retail. Right? I had the last show in Ventura, so a year ago, basically. Um, I like it. It's the reason why I do the show. Honestly, is what the story I'm going to tell you. So I get in the elevator after the second day is done. So like the third morning, right? Like whatever, everyone's checking out and done, and I stayed at the hotel even though I live pretty close to the venue. And the next morning, I got up really early and I'm leaving, and I'm going to get in the elevator. There's a couple with like the bellhop kind of cart thing, you know what I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
round top thing, and they had all their boxes on it, and I could tell they had like a Hall of Flowers like tote bag hanging off of it. And I get in the elevator, and they're in the elevator, and they're like pushing their stuff in, and I'm like, oh, should I ask? Should I ask? And I'm nervous, right? Because what if they didn't have a good show? And I go like, you guys have a good show? And they go, oh my god, yeah. And I go, oh, okay, yes. Like, what happened? They go, it changed our lives. And I was like, what's up? And they're like, we opened 50 new accounts. That's it. I'm getting chills right now just
Wow.
even thinking about it. They're like
That's
that.
awesome.
They're like, oh man, I'm getting chills. They were like, it was expensive, and now we realize it's a good investment. We weren't sure if it was going to be an investment, a good investment or not, right? And they killed it. And that's why we do it. That's the idea, is to provide value. The only thing I care about at all is, would you do it again? That's the only question I ask. If anyone wants to do the show, like, I don't care if they do it once. It's not a success. They need to want to come to do it more than once. That's why we turn down a lot of brands and all these things, is because we know they're not going to have a good show. We just want to take their check and fuck off. And you know what I mean? Like, we don't want to do that. It doesn't help
Yeah.
anybody, right? It helps like some cash today, but that's not the sustainable plan. How much value could we provide? That's all
Yeah.
we care.
That's good that you have a rigorous vetting process, like you talked about
Yeah.
earlier, because it does keep out a lot of the riffraff, like you mentioned, and it only brings down the credibility of the show, right? Like if those
Yeah.
types of brands or businesses get in. So, um, that's great. Tell me, so as we wrap up,
Yeah.
Rama, I want to ask you, I know that you have your blinders on, you mentioned earlier, and
Yeah.
that's a skill, by the way. I applaud you for that. Let's talk about cannabis industry not best practices, excuse me, predictions.
Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest opportunities for new cannabis entrepreneurs? Um, and then let's also talk about why social equity and industry ethics need to be a priority.
Okay. Remind me of the second one, even though I never want to
Well, I'm
forget it.
bringing that one up because that's a big topic for you. You mentioned
Yeah.
social equity,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'll bring
Sure.
you back to that. Yeah. So
Yeah, but
yeah.
hopefully I'll remember. So, but the first one, I love it because I have the best answer of all time. I have
Okay.
that I truly believe a intern today in cannabis, they will be CEOs of huge cannabis companies in 4 years from now. It's there's
Whoa, that's a big statement.
the industry doesn't exist yet. Think of getting into oil or cars or
So you
tech.
mean like any ancillary business, right? So you're just like if they start
You
or they're
Yeah, if you
part of
want to get
this.
into weed, if you want
Yeah.
to get into weed truly, I would do everything in my power to go work for free, literally, at one of the cool weed companies and shadow and intern and assist. And literally, interns today will run companies in a few years because the industry doesn't exist yet. You know
Right.
what I mean? And like the cream
Well,
will rise to the top so quickly. It's not like the music industry where you got to like work decades to become the head of A&R. No, like five good ideas, you can be number one in the space. You know, so I'd say that. And then this is the problem. Ready? No one knows what they're doing in any industry, but especially in cannabis. We've never done it before. How could we know? How could you know what you're doing if you haven't done it? Right? So a lot of people are following the leader.
so what
And
do you mean by that? Elaborate, like give me examples. What don't we know? What aren't we doing? What is
how
the
how,
I
how
say
could we?
we?
Yeah.
What is the industry not doing right?
No, no. I'm not saying we're not doing stuff right. I'm saying that it's never been, the industry doesn't exist yet. So we've never done it. We're pulling from music and energy drinks and alcohol and tobacco and fashion and whatever. That's what we're pulling from to build cannabis. But the industry doesn't exist.
You're saying
There's
we're it's not anything yet because federally it's not recognized. Is that what you
no,
mean?
just
Because
because
there
it's
are
so.
24 states that are
No,
that
I mean
are
it just like compared to automotive industry. Like if you were like, I'm going to start an automotive company today, and you were 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years old and want to start you know how long it would take you to start a car company? You know what I mean?
right.
But like, but right now you could go intern. But right now there's two car companies that exist. Really, you can take a time machine back. You can go intern for Henry Ford or whoever made cars. I don't know, and then you can make your own fucking car company in a few years because you learned because we're learning how what happens. We don't.
Okay, I get what you're going with this now. You're
Yeah.
saying that we're built like how people say that term, we're building the plane as we're flying it. So
Yes.
like
Yeah.
we're figuring out as we go, and then obviously there's regulations and federal constraints, right? And all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So every day, okay, yeah. I'll interpret it as like it's not a mature industry because I mean it is an
Right.
industry, but it's
Yeah.
like
It's
it's
the
an
most
infant, it's a
immature
baby.
industry that exists. Yeah. It's
Yes,
the most
yeah.
immature industry that exists. And even something
Yes.
newer like AI is instantly more, established than cannabis even is because it just had the money and backing and the people put behind it. We are like inventing, not building the airplane, we're inventing the airplane as we fly.
I truly believe that cannabis is like thriving because of the will of the people. Like that is
Absolutely is.
100% it from the operators,
Yes.
cultivators, bud
Yes.
tenders, and the people that consume and the people that support. And some politicians that are helping with the cause as well. But that's really it. That is the force
Yep.
driving this thing forward
Yep.
because it's getting no help, right? Wouldn't you
That's right.
agree, Rama?
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Okay.
it's
We're on
it's
the
such
same
a
page.
it's such a brand new industry, we'll call it, that
Yeah.
that you can be an intern at a company right now, learn everything about it in a year or two, and then know it almost as much as most of the people. Because again, if it's as Gary said, it's baseball, but we haven't even taken showers yet or put our socks on yet. You know what I mean? We haven't started yet, right? So like if
Yeah.
that's the case, then you can still get in for the first. People think it's too late for it hasn't started yet. Again, if you're an idiot, it's probably not going to work out that well, right? But if you
Yeah.
want to really get into the industry, come out, come intern, come do the stuff. Like it's
What's a fact is how many problems can be solved in this industry right now.
oh
And
my god.
entrepreneurship is all about solving problems. So,
Mhm.
I mean, you're absolutely right in that aspect. Like if you're new eyes coming in and you just kind of see a gap that needs to be filled,
Yep.
there is truly a trajectory up, to excel.
Yep.
Um, in other cases, I mean, like cultivation and whatnot, that seems like kind of hard to tap into because there's a lot of legacy operators that are now cultivating on the legal side,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
But think of
competition just seems
that.
so plus the entry is like, a lot of dough
Yeah.
to do that as well.
Yeah, of course. But even all those worlds, like that doesn't, those worlds are still so new. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there hasn't been real science applied to any of this stuff yet. And depending on what happens on overgoing, over state lines or whatever, interstate or whatever, state commerce, state whatever the
Yeah.
heck they call that.
Interstate
That
commerce.
might that might take forever. So like, in the meantime, everyone that's growing good weed in California, they want to grow it a lot of other places too. So you don't have to be Coca-Cola California. You can be Coca-Cola fucking New Jersey and
Right.
make a ton of money. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's the opportunity, right? Like the opportunity is just to get in. Again, like if you're trying to have a career and like you care about like how much you're getting paid and you're doing it for like a job, cannabis it gets turned out and you get crushed here. Because like it's not that yet. You know what I mean? This is like you want to get in and
True.
build and be part
Yeah.
of something
This is the
later.
building phase. That's a good
Yeah.
point. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah. It's not as like going back to your point, it's not established. So that you don't have the luxury of like,
No.
having a steady salary where you're like all this
No.
benefits and everything.
I-
Like we're
yeah.
we're building right now. We're
Having a
growing. And
budget or
yeah.
give me what's your marketing budget? If you're like used to having a marketing budget at a real company, a normal industry, I'll call it, then you come into cannabis, it doesn't exist. I brought in someone that was a major president of a major alcohol company to work with me in my stuff a couple years ago. And he got turned out so quickly and turned off by the industry so quickly, and that I think he lasted, maybe I'd have to look at it, maybe 2 or 3 months. And after like the 50th meeting of it being a crazy meeting or someone not doing what they said they were going to do, even if because they said it, he was just like, I got to stop. I can't do this anymore. He's like, it's so Wild West, they call it all the time. And he's coming from alcohol. But again, in 50 years ago in alcohol, it would have been the same thing as it is now here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's exciting to just see that there is so many opportunities and the
Oh, yeah.
barrier to entry in most cases, not all, are pretty straightforward. I mean, you just
Simple.
just
Yeah,
just
that's
buckle
right.
down and grind it out really is kind of
That's
at least
perseverance.
how. Yeah, and that's how I look at it, in terms of this podcast, which of course, I mean I enjoy when I say that, but it's like this is a long-term game. We've got so much to learn in this space,
That's
and
right.
every day it's evolving. So that's what's exciting, specifically from my perspective. But let's close
Yeah.
with your point earlier. You talked about, how first and foremost, social equity,
Yeah.
and I'm going to throw in industry ethics. Why do these
Sure.
things need to be a priority?
Yeah, I think social justice, right? To me, it's social justice, social equity, and then what's the thing you said? The third thing? Sorry,
Social, I said, well, way out of those, yeah, social justice, social equity, and
yeah.
industry ethics.
Industry ethics. Yeah, okay. Um, Nonviolent cannabis prisoners, or people that are in jail for nonviolent cannabis acts, offenses, whatever. Um, it's nuts that I can do a show like Hall of Flowers and these brands can exist, and yet someone's in jail for selling weed. You know, um, so that's just ridiculous to me. Social equity, you know, it's the next step. It's anyone, a lot of people were marginalized by this plant. A lot of people were like, this was a, there was a war on drugs and people like were attacked for this thing. Um, so to me, those are just the most important conversations and the only thing that really matters. What else is there, right? The rest of it's just like business and having fun and stuff. So those are the only two important conversations, in my opinion. And they will be for the next decade. Ethics in the industry, it's hard. A lot of these people, they were drug dealers, right? So the ethics is a hard thing. I think you're seeing that change, but I don't know if I've met more people that were trying to take advantage or unethical that were corporate people. I'd say more than even the traditional market. I the wave of lawyers that came in and brought all these companies public and tons of friends like lost companies is disgusting to me. You know, so it's hard, and also everyone's very secretive, right? No one wants to know, like, tell people they got robbed or they got taken advantage of or they're suing or lawsuits or, it's a very kind of closed off, industry. lot of people hold secrets, so I think if you could really expose all the bad actors in the space, I think that would help. Now, there's stuff like Adam Levin from High Times, who got in trouble recently for doing some unethical things. There's like the MedMen dude, that wrote that book that, people think is ridiculous, that he's claiming that he's like the weed king, and, he like just basically ripped a bunch of people off. I don't know. I'm like the most positive person. I don't want to be negative. I read those articles when they came out, but I wouldn't comment on them. Even talking to you now about it, I kind of felt weird about just saying it out loud. So I think unless there's like an ethical kind of way to bring these conversations up and help the industry together and help the community, I think it's just going to keep going this way, unfortunately. I think it goes back to what you said earlier about the kind of clickbaity stuff. The negative stuff is what people want to read. You see a lot of that in cannabis, or some of it at least, but you don't really see like much like coming together, like a union kind of feeling or whatever. It's coming together to protect the communities and the industries. It could exist. I just don't really know about it. If it does exist, Hall Flower should be where everyone meets up. So let's do that. Again, I think a lot of people don't really know what they're doing yet because we've never done it before. So I think it's hard enough just to run the business, never mind to think about like how to improve the industry and stuff like that at the same time.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I want to ask you, I think that Hall of Flowers has an upcoming event. Is it in March?
Yeah.
Is that correct? So
yeah, next month from today.
Go ahead and plug the stuff, man, so people can find the website and you if they want to get in touch. Yeah.
So hallflowers.com. Check it out. March 19th and 20th, we're in Ventura, California on the beach. Right now, as of today, I think it was like 950 retail doors represented, and we sold out of booths. So that's like 300 or something essential brands. So we're a month out and we're sold out, which is epic. Now we just got to make it as awesome as we possibly can. Every day, work harder to make it awesome. But essentially it's the who's who and basically everyone that matters in the California cannabis industry comes down that's able to make it. Of course, we have people way up in Humboldt that can't make it. It's pretty far for them. We have a show in Santa Rosa in the fall that a lot of them kind of come down to more a little bit. This one's, in Southern California, so we have more of a Southern California turnout. And yeah, just best in class of the brands. I think the only thing else I'd say about it is this year we have two new things at the show. We have a little section called Blueprint, which is out-of-state operators and technology and automation. So we're adding like just very few select, like the best of the best of the best of some of this manufacturing and automation equipment. Not a sea of it, but almost like every step along the process of how to even do extraction and these things. We have like the different companies to represent each step of the process, which is exciting and new for us. And then we have a little space called Axis, which is like a executive lounge kind of thing, I guess, like more for meetings. If you don't want to have a booth, but you're coming in and you want to have a bunch of meetings, you can reserve a space, or, we internally call it Soho House for weed. It is nothing like Soho House. It's not fancy and nice like that. We'll get there one day. That's our goal, is to do it like that. But yeah, it's a little kind of executive lounge space called Access, which is new for us as well, starting next month in Ventura.
Awesome. Well, good luck with the event. Sounds like it's going to be awesome. Bud. You're already sold out this early, so congrats on that. And Rama, it was great talking with you. I appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you all for listening. Until next time, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Cannabinoid Connect, the nation's most diverse cannabis-related podcast.